If you're listening on podcast, be sure to tune in to our YouTube channel on YouTube at Wild and Weird WV.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio, a Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
They are an enigma in time. Once believed to be ancient relics and proudly displayed in museums, they were sought as trophies, smuggled out of countries to keep them safe from invading armies. They are said to have incredible powers and to have been handed down by ancient ancestors, some of who claim that they were gifts from extraterrestrials. Others believe their origin is from Atlantis or a lost technological society. But modern scientists claim that they are nothing more than forgeries and hoaxes. They are the ancient crystal skulls. 12 are known, and according to ancient beliefs, when the 13th skull is found, it will usher in a new age of enlightenment for all mankind. If you think you know all there is about the crystal skulls, you might be surprised. Join us as we do a deep dive into the legend of the crystal skulls in this episode of Wild and Weird Radio.
Welcome back to Wild and Weird Radio, everybody. It has been a wild and weird week, and we've got some stuff planned to talk about in the news, and we have an amazing episode prepared for you guys. And remember, if you're listening on YouTube, to head on over to that little subscribe button. It's just a little notification bell right there on the side. Hit that subscribe button, and then smash the notification bell. That way, anytime new content drops, like our regular episodes, our research videos, or one of the lives that occur every Thursday, you're sent a notification so that way you can jump on and watch it immediately as soon as it pops up, or just join us on the live and engage in conversation. It's a fantastic time, and you just don't want to miss them. They're great. The conversation alone is worth jumping in and hanging out.
We had an incredible live last week. It was incredible. Dewey,
you want to know honestly what it reminds me of a little bit, and this just kind of I think shows my age. Do you remember the AOL chat rooms?
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, it really feels like
it has that feel, doesn't it?
It has a feel like the old, old AOL chat rooms, but with a video component. Because we're able to communicate with you guys in real time, and it's a great time. We get to as many people's questions as we can, and we've had several people make new friends in the chat. So it's great seeing that happen.
Yeah, I think it's what we always said. We're trying to grow the community, and these are the tools to help grow the community, and the community is helping grow the community, which is even greater. So yeah, definitely get over there. They're a lot of fun, and you'll just I'm pretty sure you'll fit right in. I'm not sure what Brandon's doing, but that's that's par for the course around here.
It happens.
We just never know what's happening anymore. But so definitely get over there and do that. If you're listening, then you definitely want to go over and hit that hit that video, because we do some stuff, and there's some special reports that come out. So are you guys ready to head over to the news desk then?
Let's do it too.
We good? Okay.
So, as stated, it's been a pretty wild and weird week. There's been some interesting news, but before we hit that, how are you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I've been making a lot of paintings and getting stuff ready for the next show. I guess that's today's show up there. So we're gonna have some neat stuff for you guys to look at, apparently, and that's been fun.
Yeah, I've been knocking out some stuff too as I get around to it, and getting some stuff for some wholesale orders ready to fly out. And as you can tell, my voice has a little bit of extra sexy on it tonight.
Yeah,
because I've been puking up my guts.
Something. Yeah, I heard you got a little something.
Yeah, I've got Rowan.
Alien virus.
Yeah, Patient
Gotcha.
Zero brought in
Yeah.
an alien virus from some unknown place, which we have no idea where he got it. My best guess is when I took him to get a haircut, because that's
It's hard to say.
But the kids have sprung back resiliently, and I'm the one that's left, feeling like I'll get hit by a Mack truck.
Sounds about right. That's normal. Brandon, have you come down with any plagues lately?
Not lately, but
Come on, man, get down with the sickness, baby.
It's good, brother. Good. I'm happy. That makes me, because we had a little something over here. Nothing serious. It was more of a, I don't know if we ate something, bad or what. But that makes you the last one standing. Is what I'm saying, Brandon. So
it's coming for you.
If it comes down to it, you would have the helm. Is what we're saying. So you gotta be ready for that.
Real quick.
Are you down for a solo live show with Brandon Wills?
Right. The show's got to go on. So
this is when we need to go ahead and start doing our narrations for our future shows.
It is.
Welcome to Wild and Weird Radio.
Yeah.
A Wild and Weird West Virginia podcast.
That's it, man. That's
it. So what do we got on the news table, Brandon?
The first thing I found that I thought was notable was that there was a brief document that was declassified that mentioned a UFO encounter at Hallett Station on July 7th, 1962 by several people who work in the Air Force.
Okay.
And, it said that they witnessed a bright light traversing the sky from the southern to the northern hemisphere in 3 to 4 minutes. The object appeared to be 3 separate lights, and it emitted a visible vapor trail across the moonlit sky.
A vapor trail. See, those are rare.
But there might be some interesting tidbits to this specific sighting. Brandon, where exactly was this base at?
Antarctica.
Oh.
Antarctica. Now,
for all you guys who saw Stargate, you know what that means.
Yep. Not just Stargate, but Ancient Aliens.
Messing with you. But that's
what was that old The Thing, right?
The Thing.
Yeah.
The Thing.
But Antarctica is it's a weird place, and the atmospherics there might play into what produced that visible trail.
Yeah, you never know, man. You just never know, and you're right. The atmosphere is good. That was a visible trail, a plasma stream that was, caught because of the aurora. Who knows?
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Was that the way these things are alleged to move by some of the leading investigators out there is that they're using some type of field to move, and you would cause a disturbance through the aurora or through a visible atmospheric at that point.
Yeah, create a wake, basically. Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, could be. What else you got, bud?
So there was also a very weird red halo that appeared in the sky above Italy, and it only lasted for.
I saw this. What are they making of this thing at this point?
They think it was caused by a distant thunderstorm. That's the working theory right now.
Okay, so it's like a sprite. Is that what we're trying to say? But sprites happen way up in the atmosphere. They don't happen that low.
There was actually someone did get a pretty good picture of it too, and
okay.
It doesn't look like one to me, but that's what they're trying to call it.
Okay, yeah. I mean,
it's kind of low for one though.
Yeah,
it's very low. It happened in that area of Italy that has a lot of UFO sightings.
Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, I'm curious. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me anymore. You see, I'm just like, it's UFO. I mean, there used to be a time when I would get all giddy and excited that we had a really good UFO case. It's just like, yep, here we go again. I mean, and it's getting to that point for a lot of people. And we've said this, it's ramping up. It's ramping up. Or at least it seems to be. So who knows? Go back and watch some extra, episodes and put the pieces together. What else you got?
So apparently there was a bidding war with publishing companies to get the rights to a person who used to work for the military. His name is Scott Andrews, and Simon & Schuster apparently won the bidding war. He has a really interesting story because he claims that he found out throughout his childhood that he was apparently signed out of school for weeks on end. He doesn't remember this at all, and he apparently was working for the Air Force while he was underage.
Okay. So 20 and backer, kind of.
That's what it sounds like, right?
This seems like where it could have started. Yeah, this is the kind of technology that you would need for something like that. If you, okay, so what? Let's play a game here with me just for a second. If we entertain the 20 and back stuff, and we entertain it in such a way that it was a mind op, some kind of psyops, just to mess with these people. First of all, I don't know why they would do it, but there's ways to do it. I think we've proved at this point that it is absolutely possible to really mess with someone with some of those toys that they're alleged, to have at this point. It could definitely happen. I mean, imagine, you wake up and you're on an alien planet, blah, 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 right? I mean, for all you know, you have VR goggles on. And we're talking about, next gen stuff, because let's be real, they give us the stuff that they had ages ago. They're playing with the real stuff. They're playing with the holodeck, So you wake up in this, you think it's real, or they just beam it right into your mind, like we've said. Some of this technology appears to be able to do. So I don't know, man. It definitely.
He apparently thinks it was Havana syndrome, and you know who that ties to.
We know who that ties to, and that's interesting. So he's probably one of the patients, is what you're saying.
That's what it sounds like.
That we referred to in Nolan's research, probably. Yep. Yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and listen to Making Contact. I believe it was episode 2 is where we talked about that.
Yeah, episode 2 is where we got into Nolan. And
yeah, I believe it was episode 2.
Green and all of them.
Yeah, go check that out, because it's too.
I have to actually buy that book when it comes out. Just to see.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, if they're offering, contracts for this, there's something, and of course it plays right into that whole thing. Like I kept telling you, this is all part of that. We've got to know. There's this one side that's pushing us to know. There's another side that's like, we're not ready for that, but I think we are, and I think we better get ready for it. There was another interesting. This is all UFO news. This is absolutely amazing, really, if you really think about it. It's all UFO news, and it was a relevant one too. April 5th, this post shows up on Twitter, and now it's pretty much everywhere. But it appears to show, if it's real, it shows a craft, a saucer-shaped craft, whizzing by a plane at Mach. God knows how fast.
Mach Jesus. This thing's
fast.
The aircraft is moving the opposite direction that this thing's coming. So we automatically do get a skewed speed, but this thing's moving at a pretty good clip.
It's moving very fast.
Because this was just a beach craft. This wasn't like a jet. This is a twin prop plane. So it's moving at the speed of smell. Yeah, it was literally over Columbia, right? Somewhere around in there. Yep, flying over the Columbia Beach, and it's one of those ones where you see like where they're pulling the sign behind them, where they do tours. Beach tours where you go up and you can fly, and it's that kind of aircraft. So you're not flying in something that's going to be capable of incredible speeds. Right, exactly. And they've had interviews with the witness now at this point, and she says it's, she was the pilot, and she says it's legit, and it seems to check out, which is weird because it's on one of those situations where it's almost too good to be true. It's not so much what's in it, but how this thing is flying. Yeah, that is the real. If you head over to our page and find that link, I snagged some stills from the video and put those in the feed. I'll put them in here. Actually, we'll play the video, and we are probably playing it right now. To be honest with you, if you want to head over to the YouTube, if you're listening to us, and watch it, because if you're a Bob Lazar aficionado, you're going to see what you see, and it's kind of hard to deny, right, Joe? It really is. It was the first thing that I noticed the very first time I saw the video, and then I was and so I went downstairs. I got on the faster section of my internet in the house, and used my phone to scrub through the video. and find the clearest 3 sections that I could, because not only is it flying a particular way, but there does also appear to be some mild shape shifting.
It's a weird video. If it's CGI, I'll say this: if it is CGI, then someone did a phenomenal job, and I mean, like, I'm talking
Movie quality.
Lucasfilms. Yeah, I'm talking like someone paid a lot. This isn't one of those things. I
This
don't think you could pull this off with just off
No.
the shelf stuff, unless
I
you
don't
this
think
had a
this
lot of
is
money.
like Jurassic Park dinosaurs good.
If you had a lot of money, you could pull this off, which also means that why would you do that? If you have a lot of money, you don't need to do that. You don't need to make a film, you know, a video that's going to get X billion clips to make you money, because you've already got money. Obviously, you have a small studio to produce this thing.
Yeah.
And one of the, one of the things that got me was I really did think it was fake. And I got on some one of the Facebook groups, and they were talking about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's fake." And they sent me the link, and I'm like, "Wait! This is where it came from." They sent me a link from another YouTube studio, basically, who had taken this footage off of Twitter, and they even said, it's not their footage, and they were claiming it to be fake. And well, actually, they weren't claiming it to be fake; they were claiming it to be something. But
Yeah.
they were guilty by association, because they were basically a VFX house, and I don't know if they were analyzing it or what. I don't. It doesn't really matter. That means nothing. The person who actually posted it is more impressive to me than that. So you're going to have to go watch it and judge it for yourself. We're obviously going to be paying more attention to this one. There'll be more stuff coming out on it. And
Yeah, this is
Man.
going to be one that we're going to have to keep an eye on for sure.
yeah,
I found some screenshots on Above Top Secret where some people actually zoomed in on it.
yeah.
That is definitely not
Yeah.
fake.
No, it's.
I mean, it looks legit, dude. That's what
There's
I'm
no
telling you.
way that you could
Holy crap.
seam it that perfect. Like you've got to have $1 million studio.
Okay,
When
but
you
let's
pull it
talk
off.
about this real quick, guys. Just really quick with me. Play devil's advocate with me here, okay? Because I'm going to grow some horns for you for a second. All right. This is what I'm worried about. Could that be not as good as we actually think it is, but maybe touched up with some kind of AI algorithm to make it look the way it looks? Look at what they did with you saw it. There is a
Well,
little bit of different news.
the
Look at what they
still
did with the
photos,
patty.
yes, you could.
Look at what they did with the patty thing at this point. They're running around saying that the HD version, which was the best, the hand done one, that's legit. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a very good analysis type recreation, not really recreation, but enhancement, a real enhancement.
Right.
But now they've taken that and put it through an AI filter, and the AI filter is filling in blanks where it thinks they should be, because it, like us, thinks that that's something that's a real creature.
Yeah.
But it's using its imagination, basically. It doesn't
Right.
have one.
It's filling in exactly
Filling in
that
blanks.
blanks.
Right.
And I'm not a huge fan of the new
You
AI
shouldn't be. You
generated
shouldn't
version.
be.
I do like the digital, the very first digital one where they used is I think it was
That's
like
different.
8
Yeah, that's
different
that's filtered.
versions of the film, I think
Yeah.
it was. But that's a different animal. That's
totally
not
different. We're
that's not AI. Now
Yeah.
they could have done this, but you would still, I think, see especially when you zoom in, you would see a bleed, like a, you know how it looks whenever you inject something into a real photo. Anybody does, but especially people who've done this professionally.
Well,
And I'm not seeing that now. Some of these zoomed photos, though, they do look like they've been touched up using an AI program. That's why, in particular, I'm a fan of just the stills that I grabbed straight from the video and zoomed them in to the point where I lost quality, and then zoomed them back just a hair, and then we put those up on the Facebook page.
well, I don't know what it is, and again, I'm pretty up on what's available to the consumer level, but I am not that up to date what's available with the high-end studio levels anymore. Could it be an experimental CGI? Yeah, it could be, but if it is, I don't know what kind of compositor they're using. That's not After Effects. Let's just put it that way.
No, it's not
So
After
I don't know
Effects.
what that is, and it could be Nuke, I guess. It could be a couple of those other things. They could be using some form of Unreal Engine that we don't know about, an experimental version. If they are, again, this is not hobby level. This
No,
is
it's
studio
definitely not
level.
hobby level.
It's studio level. So you have to ask yourself if that is. We went through this before. We went through this 3 years ago. If this is a fake, then who did it and why would they go to that length? I'm
Yeah.
just saying, it absolutely it feels weird.
If it was professional or done using some kind of a CGI or something like that, it's definitely, that to me would have like the Big Daddy G feel
Mhm.
to it.
Mhm.
If you
Yeah.
catch my drift.
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying, and I
Capital
believe
G.
so too. Oh
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So is that pretty much the news, guys? Until next week.
Think so, yeah.
All right, let's wrap her up
Something
and
else
get
happened.
in. Is that good?
Yep.
All right, here we go then.
Well, gentlemen, this week's episode is one that we've, again, had on the desk for a very long time. But now seems better time than any to go ahead and talk about it. And it is extremely weird topic to go over, especially when you start researching it and the things that come out of it. And that is, as Ron is holding there, the episode about crystal skulls. And just because I've got the sexy voice, I think I'm going to handle Ron's narration point this week.
Go for it.
Crystal skulls. They are said to be of ancient origin, handed down by the ancestors, who make claims that they're not from this earth. Others claim they are part of an elaborate information storage and retrieval device, and that there are 13 true crystal skulls waiting to be brought together to unleash a new age of enlightenment on the world. They're carved from blocks of quartz crystal and exhibit extraordinary lapidary skill, but many believe that this proves them to be nothing more than modern-day creations of art. Hang into this episode because we're going to give you all of the data that we could possibly find in this episode covering the crystal skulls.
That's pretty good, Joe. And yeah, there's a lot. I'm going to straight out tell you this. Okay, first of all, you guys know I love crystals. It's my thing.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love them. I mean, I don't have a clue why. I just like them. Always have.
Probably they're really freaking cool.
They're really freaking cool. Exactly. There's something magical about a crystal, and I don't mean like metaphysically magical. There is probably, but I don't mean that. I mean, there's just something that draws you to that shiny thing, and and you want to collect them all, but you can't because they're extremely.
If you think about it, it starts with childhood.
It really does.
You know, my son is 3 years old. From the time that I started taking him outside, his favorite thing to do was bring me his favorite rocks. His favorite of the favorite rocks were the ones that had shiny little pieces of quartz in them.
Exactly. And so, that's kind of where it is. But as far as the crystal skulls go, I know you're going to find it hard to believe, but I only really thought that a few of these things might be legit.
Yeah.
I don't think that anymore. I think that there's a good chance that quite a few of them are legit, and there's still quite a few of them out there. That's what I think at this point. Where they come from, I don't know. You have to listen to the rest of the story for that. But boy, did we come across some stuff on this one. It was very interesting. But what do we know about quartz? So in ancient times, quartz was fashioned into beads. Obviously, we know this. They've been found 7,000 BCE. I mean, that's pretty much. I think they've been found even older than that at this point, to be honest with you. They've been found all over the world, everywhere.
You just can't date them. That's the problem.
You can't date them. And we're going to talk about that later. It's so abundant. That's the thing about quartz. This is amazing to me. Quartz is so abundant, yet it is the most highly sought after semi-precious stone on the planet.
Yeah.
It's literally in everything. Uh, it's still regarded as a healing stone to metaphysics, and it got that start in the Middle Ages of Europe, and it transferred over into, of course, the Americas. Asian cultures adopted it. Every civilization, pretty much. Today, it's found in literally everything we have. All of our electronics, the watches work with it, the phones work with it. They're everything.
Screens.
They're everywhere. Crystals
Yeah,
are
I've heard that they're really conductive. It's like comparable to copper.
it's different how it works
Yeah.
though, but yes, and they actually absorb power, they regulate power. That's why they're used in watches. When crystal
Yep.
watches came out, it was a big deal. That was a
Yep.
huge game changer. Because it actually made the pulse, so that's some of the lure of it and whatnot. But outside of that, outside of our little modern day trinkets and these hand carved goodies that we pick up in rock shops, the legend is that there were 13 original ancient crystal skulls, and those are the ones that we're going to be talking about first and foremost. And a lot of people know about these, but there are some here I bet you didn't know about, and I'll bet you there's some stuff that you didn't think of. Joe, in that sexy narration voice, why don't you hit that?
Well, the original 13 crystal skulls of legend, they say that they've been hunted down by explorers, smuggled out of countries said to possess strange abilities and powers. They have been in the possessions of various power figures throughout history.
Pythagoras.
Some believe that they're from other worlds or from lost continents such as Atlantis, Lemuria, and that these skulls contain vital information about humanity's hidden past. Believers say that the skulls were eventually scattered around the world, just like the Dragon Balls.
Well, that's where that came from.
It is where that whole thing came from. You're exactly right. And that they would one day, during the darkest, most desperate times of humanity, be brought back together to usher in a new age of wisdom and enlightenment to help humanity survive.
Exactly. And summon Shinron.
And summon Shimron. Exactly right.
Exactly. Just like that.
12 of the ancient skulls are said to be known and are in private collections and museums. According to the ancient belief of the Mayans, when the 13th of the ancient crystal skulls is found and they are brought together with the others, it will usher in a new age for humanity. But this is all just a legend, right? Crystal skulls are modern carvings. What some sources would have us believe, but some of this needs to be re-examined a little more closely. And that's what we're going to attempt to do in this episode, guys. So strap into your seats.
We're going to
What do we know, Ron? What do
we
we know?
We know that in the late 19th century, the museums displayed these things as if they were genuine Mesoamerican artifacts. There was no question to this.
And these were special artifacts too, because as mentioned earlier in the episode, the majority of these quartz items are small trinkets and talismans. This finding of large quartz objects
monsters, bigger than this, by the way.
Yeah, is mind blowing.
Much bigger than this,
right? These are mind blowing finds, because that means that if somebody made something that large, there was a whole lot of intent behind it.
This is about the size of the Mitchell Hedges skull, by the way.
Yeah.
So if that gives you an idea, and we're going to be talking about some bigger ones than this, you can imagine finding something like that.
Right.
So
because the majority of findings are like this big.
Yeah,
you're looking at half inch to 1 inch, and then some of the talismans that they talked about.
You find something like this,
it's roughly this size.
Right. Exactly. And then you come across something like that. But the whole thing being that there's just so many of these things. So the lore, like you mentioned, of course, there's those who believe that they came from outer space, that they were brought in and gifted by beings from other worlds, that they were taken to these certain places and hidden for just the right person to find. There's so many lores and legends to this stuff, but what we do know is that like I said, they were thought to be real, and they were in some of these museums forever until they started to be debunked. And why they're debunked is very interesting. But let's start where I could go back to the farthest. The furthest mention that I could find was the love skull, LUV, not love.
Not the love skull, but the
Not
love skull.
Yes, it's not the love skull. That's a new reality show that's coming to Netflix, kids. No, it's not the love skull. This one was in Russia, actually. And it was in the 1700s. A monk was out there doing his daily walk, just, doing whatever monks do, taking a daily walk, comes by a mound and sees something shiny sticking out. There's that kid instinct again. He goes over and brushes it off. And what's he see? He sees this little chunk of rose quartz. He keeps digging. And all of a sudden, what pops out of the ground but a gigantic skull made of rose quartz. So they start digging and they find these other relics that are around there. And the relics, they date back to the previous the culture that was in the area, the Scythian people. That's just 1,000 years prior. Okay, so it's ancient, is what they're trying to get at.
Right.
Well, that skull is actually in a private collection today. You're going to find out that almost all these skulls are in a private collection today.
Yep.
And almost every one of them is known about. Like these things are rock stars, literal rock. So did it there.
Rock stars among the rocks.
Yeah, you got me. So tell us about the first one that goes on display, Joseph.
Well, that would be the Paris skull. The very first skull ever displayed to the general public, it's thought to have been the Paris skull. That's the one we know of being the very first one on display. That's why it's widely accepted as being the very first.
Mm-hmm.
This skull was once on display in the early 1800s, but it was removed and placed behind the museum walls, only to be seen in public again on May 20th, 2008, coinciding with the release.
Years. Over 100 years, they hid it.
But this coincided with the release of the movie Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Most people associated the Musée des Hommes, the Trocadero Museum, as home of the Paris skull, as the skull was originally donated to the museum by Alphonse Pinart in 1887. However, today it's cataloged under other Parisian museum, the Musée des Quartz, Brainlay. Yeah, that's how you say it, near the Eiffel Tower. Curiously, Alphonse Pinart claimed that to have purchased the skull from Eugene Bobon. This is important as Eugene Bobon worked in Mexico from 1862 to 1867 during the French occupation as the French Scientific Commission underneath the Emperor Maximilian. So he was there working, essentially, by the sounds of it, like an artifact finder or collector or something under the French Scientific Commission.
Yep. That's how you get it. Yeah.
What stands out about this Paris skull is that it's been drilled. Okay. So this is one of the skulls that has been drilled in the center.
It actually has a spot underneath it.
There's a round hole.
Yeah, under here, right in the center.
And it's theorized that this allowed it to be placed on top of a pole or a cross. So there's a mount.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the other skulls in the museum today, the skull provenance through controversial base on more modern testing, as it's still listed as having Mexican origin.
Yeah, the thing about it is they still contest this one. It's controversial. Some still believe that it has Mexican origin, and others say, well, this test that they did recently, I think in like the 2000s, mid 2000s or late 2000s, proved that it was also fake, like the rest of them. Because they're kids, none of these are real. That's what we're gonna prove to you, right?
Right.
Wrong. So we're gonna start with that, with the British Museum skull. Oh, and by the way, this is the Paris skull. That's a picture of it. It's not a very pretty.
Definitely looks Mesoamerican to me.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? If you look at
the teeth, the nose, the eye, and the you've got the elongated skull there a little bit.
Yep, you can actually see that, and I think you can see right through the middle there. I believe that's where it's drilled. You can kind of see there's a
that void just under the ear hole.
It looks like there's actually a hole in there. So anyway, The British Museum skull. This one is interesting. Uh, in room 24, there's an elaborately carved representation of a small human skull. It's carved from a single piece of rock quartz crystal. It's polished near mirror perfection. Now, this skull was believed to have been an Aztec relic brought over prior to 1863 by a Spanish officer, and later in 1881 appears in the shop of the Paris antiquarian Eugene Bobon. Again, remember that name, guys. It's going to come up a few times. Its origin was not stated in the catalog of the time, but he was said to have tried to sell it to Mexico's National Museum as an Aztec artifact, but he was unsuccessful. I mean, they're not going to buy it. It's like you stole it from us. We're not going to buy it.
Right.
So Bobon later moves his business to New York, where the skull was sold to Mr. Ellis. And later, the records reveal that this skull was in possession by a man named George H. Sisson. I wonder if he's any relation. It was exhibited at the meeting of the American Association of the Advancement of Science in New York City in 1887 by George F. Coons. Now, this is a matter of public record. These can be verified. You can verify all this. In 1890, the first mention of a crystal skull was in the book by George Frederick Coons, Gems and Precious Stones. In the book, he verifies that this skull is in possession by Sisson. It's there, right? So it was sold at auction, bought by Tiffany's, and later sold at cost to the British Museum in 1897. Now, from 1898 to 1896, it was displayed as an authentic, from 1898 to 1996, it was displayed as an authentic Aztec artifact, okay? In 1996, an analysis was conducted that revealed that the skull had evidence of advanced tool work that was not available to the ancient Mexicans. Ooh, okay. Further, the crystal itself was not native to the region or on any trade route of the day. Ooh, again, it is for these reasons that it was deemed a fake.
And those being the only reasons alone.
That's it. They couldn't.
They couldn't figure out how it was produced in that time.
It's an out of place artifact, right?
But how, using that same logic, like one could say, well, the pyramids are fake because we can't figure out how they built those properly.
Well, no, that's a brilliant analogy, actually. I mean, we've talked about this. The only thing tying the pyramid to its era, to its supposed creator, was a tablet that was found near it. I mean, come on, guys. It's time that we stop thinking that every time we find something in a pile of something, that's how old it was. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know how ridiculous that actually is? That's saying that, okay, you have artifacts in your house. I have artifacts in my house. Okay? I mean, one day, everything collapses, right? And all's left are those artifacts because they're going to remain. They'll find a couple of little traces here and there of some other stuff, some glass and whatnot, right? Yeah. Are they going to say that those artifacts are only as old as the other organic remains that are there? Yeah, they will. That's what we do today.
So, Brandon, what's your take on their analysis and how they reached their opinion?
That's a little silly. Because what they should do is, compare that to methods they had at the time. Like whenever these things popped up, say, is this comparable to the tool work that they had at that time? No? Okay, well then how can it be fake then?
Yeah. Yeah,
I haven't read anything or seen anything where they actually did that. They just noticed the advanced tool work that was evident on there, like there's what they deemed as like chisel marks.
Mm-hmm. Or advanced grinding. That was the more important part, Brandon. That it showed like this extreme lapidary work that had to be modern because these savages
as polished
never
and
do
refined
that.
As they were.
We've heard this before. This is the same thing that they did here with the mounds, with some of the artifacts that were found. These savages could never have done this. First of all, it was completely just belittling to the cultures who actually made this stuff. I mean, like it or not, guys, they were pretty smart.
Yeah.
They were extremely smart. They knew stuff
I mean,
that
they built those
we didn't
pyramids
know.
without the wheel or the lever.
That's right. And they talked to, extraterrestrials. So anyway, so today it's listed as probably European. That's what we're getting at, right? So they changed the moniker on it, and they said, "Well, this thing's fake. It's probably European. Probably. I'm going to tell you what it says in quotes. Probably European, 19th century AD, and is described as, quote, not of pre-Columbian origin. However, it's important to understand that by 1996, these skulls had entered the lexicon of metaphysics and ancient astronaut theorists, and we know how much the Smithsonian and the rest of the world loves that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the evidence of the advanced tool use seems like the only valid reason. And you might question that. You might think, well, okay, but now we're just saying, was there, could it be that there was lost knowledge? I think that's an absolute fact. And I think we're going to prove that later on in this, is what I think.
Next up on the table is E.T. and the Smithsonian skull. Sounds kind of weird, but it'll make more sense here in a second.
Yeah.
One such skull is said to have been found in 1906 when a Guatemalan family digging on their property unearthed an odd-looking human-sized crystal skull made of smoky quartz. Again, look at the elongation on the head. Just saying.
Yeah.
This crystal skull would become known as E.T. You can kind of see why. Just throwing it out there. But more interesting find may have been in 1910 after the Mexican Revolution removed President Porfirio Diaz. They are said to have seized a vast collection of crystal skulls, one of which was a large amethyst skull known as Amy. There's a photo of it. Now, in the hands of a private collector. Who's shocked? Now,
yeah, right.
This collection was noted to being in the president's office and confirmed later that it was in fact.
That is important right there. That part. You go ahead and read that again, because that's going to come up here in a second.
So this collection of skulls, like we said, was rumored to have been in the president's office and was later confirmed that that was the case after his deposal.
Mm-hmm.
Most interesting, the skull in this collection was said to have been a possibly hollowed giant crystal skull, 31 pounds.
That would look like, this would be a small version, but this is what they're kind of thinking when they say hollow. So it would have been dug out, theoretically. That's what we're guessing at this point. Okay, what happened to that? I mean, that'd be hard to do, right? With even modern tools. That's hard to do.
Oh.
It's hard to do with modern tools. Let's be real. This you don't. This is acrylic, by the way. It's not. It's not real. It's a prop.
This skull was ultimately sent to its doom.
Yeah.
At the Smithsonian. Who'd have guessed it?
Yep. What year was that, Joe?
That would have been in 1995, and it was sent by an anonymous donor. Smithsonian, the place where all good artifacts go to die. But I mean, let's just say it how it is, man.
Why is that important, though?
All right. So there have been tons of artifacts throughout American history. This is North America in general and South America, specifically the Americas, where artifacts that are discovered, highly recorded artifacts. These aren't like just, oh, we found a bunch of arrowheads. No, this is like bodies. We found and documented bodies.
And they're usually anomalous.
And documented anomalous structures, anomalous bodies. They were documented by, at the time, anthropologists who then sent their findings to various fellows, which wound up having ties in the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian wound up coming in and getting its hands on the majority of said artifacts. These artifacts wind up being essentially black vaulted.
Disappeared.
They go into the Smithsonian collection, they get put in crates, and then they disappear.
Yeah.
And I know that there are people listening to this who are like, "Oh, they're crazy. This is not
Right.
because
I used to think that. I, honest to
there.
goodness, used to give them the benefit of a doubt. And
Well, there's one character in particular. Me and him used to go rounds and rounds and rounds on the internet, and I don't know if he even listens to the show anymore. I don't really care, but he worked for the Smithsonian as basically like a handler, and he's like, "Oh no, their record keeping is impeccable." Until he starts showing him evidence, then all of a sudden he starts backpedaling, and there was so much documentation that I was able to render him about just artifacts from Appalachia that he just said, well, I think these were just mishandled documents at this point. He's like, I don't think that these documents are accurate. I'm like, that is seriously the best you can come up with. These were nationally published.
It's hard to swallow, man. It really is hard to swallow.
So a lot of these artifacts essentially wind up at the Smithsonian and they disappear. They're gone from human eyes.
For whatever reason.
And they're stored elsewhere in warehouses, in boxes. God knows how they're labeled.
Yeah.
And they're lost to people. They're lost to the public in time.
Yeah. So this thing's a 31-pound skull, by the way. It's big.
31 pounds and 15 inches high.
It's a giant skull is what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that's kind of odd in its own right. But
what they're one of the things that they were talking about here that it took, they were saying that it was carved using a carborundum, which is a modern abrasive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been displayed as a modern fake at the Natural History Museum now.
Yeah, it's out now. You can go see it, but it's a fake. It's okay. We'll let you see it. It's fake. Yeah. We have a big label on it that says it's 100% fake, right?
Yep.
What's very interesting about that, though, is that went to their doorsteps in 95, and in 96, all of a sudden, this skull in the British Museum that was originally authentic for 100 years, all of a sudden now it's fake. And what a coincidence that is. Is that not a coincidence, guys? But what's really funny, though, the thing that I really find that amazing about it is that the British Museum skull, it came from the same antiquities dealer, allegedly, right?
That's what they say.
I mean, that's what the paper trail says.
It is.
So how can one be a fake,
but the others aren't?
Yeah.
You've got one guy who is on record as being essentially working for the French government with their science commission, collecting artifacts, bringing them back. Then I guess you could say that he was making fraudulent artifacts because he was selling them to museums.
He was selling them to museums, but they were also over there, allegedly grabbing these. And we have to remember that skull was said to have been one of the big ones that Diaz had, the President Diaz had, when they deposed him in 1910. So I'm just saying, it's a little weird to me. I don't see this antiquities dealer dealing in fakes when he's selling these things to museums around the world.
I mean, it wouldn't be like, just giving them the benefit of the doubt here, it wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't be.
But with so many of these as being set and still considered authentic, that's what weighs on the counterbalance there in his favor.
Oh yeah. Of course. But the technology, we're just basing this on the technology. That's all we're basing it on at this point. Later on, they try to go a little more in depth, but that backfires too. But right now, it's just based on, like you said, they had to have a special abrasive to do this, and there's no evidence of that. Well, there's no evidence of it because literally, when the Spanish came in and conquered, Mesoamerica, they destroyed nearly everything. I don't think people know how much a destruction that there was.
Oh, yeah.
You only know what we know today because of a handful of individuals who took time to, and some of them,
Archive it.
some of them saved it literally from the fire. And there's only like, I don't know how, there's only like less than a dozen codices left. They were literally burned because they believed them to be evil works of the devil again. And they destroyed the culture. They destroyed the records. And those records probably told where we came from. They probably told the origin story of mankind, to be honest. That's
Yeah, in Mexico City, there was a giant pyramid, and they literally disassembled it brick by brick, and
of
then
course.
built a chapel right on the
Of
spot.
course. Of course.
Yeah.
There's many that they built the chapels right on top of the things. They did that to the mounds. They did the exact same things to the mounds.
did.
There's one pyramid where they literally built a chapel at the top of the pyramid, and it's still there
Yes.
today.
Yes.
I can't
Yes.
remember which city it's in.
But this is normal, and that's what they did. So, of course, the most famous of those skulls, the absolute most famous of those skulls, is the Mitchell Hedges skull. You've all heard the Mitchell Hedges skull if you know anything about crystal skulls. It's a beautiful skull, and what makes it unique is the fact that this thing has a removable jaw.
Really?
Yeah,
you
dude.
can remove his jaw.
It's not only that though. It's an impressive piece because that's one solid piece of crystal. Even the jaw, the removable part, it's carved
Came
out of
from
the
the same
exact
piece.
same piece of crystal. So there's that. So the story goes that in January 1st, 1924, while exploring ancient pre-Columbian ruins in Central America in Lubantun, which means City of the Fallen Stone, it's now Belize, Frederick Albert Mitchell, along with his adopted daughter, Anna, come upon the ruins of an ancient pyramid structure and begin to explore. According to Anna, she discovers a hidden chamber under the ruins of a collapsed altar. It was there, she claims, that she came upon a perfectly carved crystal skull with a removable lower jaw. Now, F.A. Mitchell Hedges mentions this skull only briefly in the first edition of his autobiography, Danger, My Ally, 1954. Without specifying where or by whom it was found, he merely claimed that it is 3,600 years old and, according to legend, was used by the high priest of the Maya when he was performing esoteric rites. It is said that when he willed death with the help of the skull, death invariably followed. According to Hedges, the skull was given to the ancient Maya by their ancient ancestors. To back up some of the claims, in 1970 letter, Anna, his adopted daughter, also stated that she was told by a few remaining Maya that the skull was used by a high priest to will death. Again, for this reason, the artifact has been referred to as a lovely name, the Skull of Doom.
Skull of Doom.
There you go. That's good. So Anna Mitchell Hedges claims the skull could also cause visions and cure cancer. That she once used its magical properties to kill a man, how ethical, and that in another instance, she saw in it the premonition of John F. Kennedy's assassination.
So she was using it to scry, basically.
Well, it's crystal.
Well, yeah, but it's
crystal. But allegedly, with the crystal skulls, they literally, you see things. You don't look for them. They just, there it is, like a TV screen. That's how some of them have described this, which is just, it's weird. It's very weird if you believe that kind of, aspects of them. Even if you don't, you have to really sit back and look at that story because that's out of an adventure movie, man. That's Indiana
really
Jones right there. Can you imagine?
That's why they made a movie about it later.
Yes.
And threw Indiana Jones into it. Arguably
There was a
worst Indiana Jones movie ever.
Maybe, but there was a lot of truth in that Indiana Jones movie that people just
they did their homework on it.
They did, but the people weren't ready for it.
So this skull was also examined by who.
Who was it examined by?
Well, that'd be none other than the dirigibles there at the Smithsonian.
Oh my! And what did they find?
Well, they described it as being very nearly a replica of the British Museum skull, almost exactly the same shape, but with more detailed modeling of the eyes and teeth. I mean, if you look at the British Museum skull and this skull side by side, I'm gonna have to argue you there.
Well, I don't have a picture of the British Museum skull here, so we should probably put that in there. But I'm going to argue there anyway because it's one solid piece.
Right. It's the British Museum skull is one solid piece, but the British Museum skull also, it looks more like the Paris skull or the ET skull, closer like within the eyes and teeth range, more so than the Mitchell Hedges. The Mitchell Hedges skulls
looks like a skull.
Very intricate, very.
It's definitely
very
unique.
Specific.
It is. I found some information while I was doing this, and we're going to go into this, but I think we're going to show a little bit of information bias here a little bit. That's what I'm getting at. What do you think?
I mean, I'm just going to lean out there and say that since the Smithsonian touched it, yeah. Just
that's good.
They might not have even been the people that wrote this article that you're getting ready to read.
They're not. They
just
weren't,
because they were mentioned in examining said skull.
Yeah. And what they said, it stuck. It stuck. And so Wikipedia picks it up and says, this is how it is. And everybody believes it. Okay. But curiously, as far as can be ascertained, F.A. Mitchell Hedges himself made no mention of the alleged discovery in any of his writings on Lubatoon. Others present at the time of the excavation recorded that neither the skull's discovery nor Anna's presence was at the dig site. This is according to sources on Wikipedia. All right. I'm going to continue. This is all from there. Recent evidence, this is important. Recent evidence has come to light showing F.A. Mitchell Hedges purchased the skull at Sotheby's auction in London on October 15th, 1943 from a London art dealer, Sidney Burney. In December 1943, F.A. Mitchell Hedges discloses his purchase of the skull in a letter to his brother, stating plainly that he acquired it from Bruni. That swindler. How dare he? Obviously, the skull is a complete hoax and forgery, right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. No questions asked. You have completely convinced me.
Yeah. Well, probably does convince a lot of people who look up the crystal skulls, read that and say, oh, well, this looks legit. But let's dig a little bit further. Give them credit where it's due because someone did a lot of research. This was according to crystalskulls.com.
The year is 1936. And there was a monthly publication of the Royal Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland. And it contains an article comparing the form and appearance of Burney, the crystal skull. This is the Mitchell Hedges skull, is being held as collateral by Sidney Burney.
What now?
That it is being held as collateral.
Held as collateral?
Yes. Because he's a lawyer and an antiques collector.
Uh-huh.
And this is being held in collateral to the British Museum crystal skull. Burney eventually puts the skull up for auction at Sotheby's. But no one meets the asking price. Mitchell Hedges ends up purchasing the skull from this auction house in 1944 for £400.
Yeah, and that's what he wrote about. I purchased the skull. He got his skull back. He didn't buy the skull originally, like this biased article makes it out. He got it back. He simply got his skull back, which was being held because he probably owed debt or who knows what. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't go into that. It kind of seems like Burney took that skull into his possession. And then whatever between him and the British Museum happened, that's between him and them. And then all of a sudden he's like, well, all right, I'm just going to sell this skull. And then Hedges is probably watching, and being like, I want my skull back. I want my skull back. Because come on, wouldn't you? I mean, I would. And the minute that it comes up for auction, he obviously couldn't get it because he wanted a ridiculous price for it. I don't remember what it was, but it was a ridiculous price. And no one
touched it.
No one bid on this thing. So he takes it off basically. And he's like, well, whatever. And here's, Hedges basically contacts him and says, hey, I'll take it off your hands. Here's £400. Well, do it.
Yeah.
So it's his again.
And this whole revelation of the backstory behind this skull and how it came to be back in his possession or whichever way it hop,
Yeah.
skipped, and jumped around.
Yeah.
It basically made people begin to think that this was a modern forgery.
But look
This
at it,
skull
man.
gets real muddy real quick.
Yeah, right. But there might be a reason for that. Think about antiquities dealers. Think about,
Oh, yeah.
you know, the secret plans and the secret, you know, handshakes that take place behind these doors and these antiquities dealers, man. This happens today, by the way. I mean, there's
does.
some, you know, there's some very big stories about that. But, you know, I asked, could it not be that, you know, Hedges had this whole thing basically wrote up that way, that he would purchase the skull and that it would be in writing and whatnot to
That way he
protect
had
it.
a paper
Mhm.
trail for it.
Yeah, right. What if what if the governments suddenly declare these things are national treasures? You know what happens
You
then?
need to have a paper trail saying that you own it,
Exactly.
and you rightfully own it.
Bingo. Exactly. So he could have did that. I mean, that's a definite possibility. Did he? I don't know. That's just complete speculation. But regardless of where the thing came from, just like the Paris skull, it's made from a block of clear quartz. We said this before, but this thing is 5 inches by 7 inches, and it has that lower detachable jaw, all made of the same piece of crystal, that's phenomenal, guys. I mean, first of all, you had to cut it, you had to shape it, and you had to make sure that bottom jaw fit. You know this? You've sculpted stuff.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? You get one try. That's it.
You get one try because you break that bad boy and you got to start all over.
How can you do that? You know, so
very meticulously.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Anna eventually allowed this skull to be examined by a freelance art restorer, and his name was Frank Dorland. Anyone in the crystal skulls knows this name very well. And in 1964, the skull went into the temporary custody of Dorland for 6 years. Okay, he studied it extensively, and upon detailed inspection, said that the skull had been carved from that single piece. And not only that, guys, it had been carved against the grain of the crystal. Now, Joe, you know what that means.
Yeah, the risk of fracture goes through the roof.
Can you do this, you know, without metal tools? Because that was his finding. It was done without metal tools because that's all we know at the time, right?
Right.
But Dorland reported that being unable to find any telltale scratch marks except for traces of mechanical grinding on the teeth. Now, that would call it into question later on. And he speculated that this was first chiseled into a rough form, which you would have to do, but almost like napping. You know, you would beat down this giant rock into a rough form, and then you just start going at it with, you know, diamonds, according to him, and finer and finer and finer grindings. Now, he said that it could have took over 150 to 300 years to finish the skull, guys.
Yeah.
He said it could have
3 or 4 makers.
Said it could have easily been up to 12,000 years old. What? How old? What's that date again? 12,000.
Puts us around that 12,000,
There's that
12,500 year area where there was a cataclysmic, earth-shattering kaboom.
Oh yes, but no one knew about that back when this was, you know, researched.
It wasn't knowledge back then. This is
what you're saying is someone gathered all 13 of them and summoned Shenron.
Okay, it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that, but there are those who believe that the skulls were together at one point, and that's where they all, you know, they all originated when they got scattered. So, Dorland also said
maybe all 13 of them are like some big storage device.
That's the
like a massive hard drive when you connect them all together.
Right. There's a master. That's the belief. You just hit it.
You know, there's actual science behind this, and I sent the link to you guys. There is a small quartz memory drive that's been created that's about the size of a quarter, and it can hold 360 terabytes of data forever.
Yep.
0 corruption rate forever.
That's right. Oh. That's right.
The University of Southampton made a major step forward in this development of the digital memory using quartz crystals.
Yep.
This is from zmescience.com, and we'll inject that here so you guys can go read it. But it is a absolutely remarkable feat that these guys managed to do with this little small piece of crystal.
Yeah, dude. they I don't know if they did it yet, but they wanted to actually create a library of all life on the planet. What does this sound like? This sounds like what they're talking about with the crystal skulls, to put all of our knowledge into one place and put it like in a safe place, like the moon or something, as a testament to humanity. Like, hey, we were here, and this is, and then hope that someone figures out how to read it. It's the same thing that we could be dealing with these things. I mean, they honestly could be record keepers. Let's be real. But what gives that a little more credence, guys, is the weird stuff that Dorland said happened while he had this skull for 6 years. He said that he would come
Maybe
into. Go ahead.
I just had a thought pop up in my head. Maybe they're shaped like human skulls because they're a neural network.
Maybe. There's actually a reason, a symbolic reason that we'll go into later, that one of the elders actually addresses that, though, Brandon. It was very good question and good theory there. But Dorland had this thing, and he said that it would do some weird stuff.
Dorland also said that there were times when he would enter the room late at night and he would find the room bathed in a soft light that he said emitted from the crystal skull itself. Witnesses also reported seeing visions in the reflections and hearing strange voices and experiencing odd aromas while in his presence. Now, we had talked about a bunch of this stuff previously in other episodes, where the auditory senses and your olfactory senses, which is your senses of smell and taste, can bring these memories back, or we can detect them in memories. Now, if this truly is a skull that is
triggering them,
a memory device, you could technically interact with this thing biomechanically.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Just saying. And it could be triggering smells. It could be
the
triggering
crazy
visions.
thing. The crazy thing is, Joe, everything that, just even, 10 years ago, this would be like, oh, that's new age hokey pokey.
Right.
Dude, this is science now.
It is. So Dorland brought the skull to the attention of writer Richard Garvin. Garvin planned for the skull to be examined by Hewlett-Packard's Crystal Laboratories in Santa Clara, California, where it was subjected to several tests, and the labs determined only that it was not a composite, as Dorland had initially supposed, but that it was fashioned from a single crystal quartz. The laboratory test also established that the lower jaw had been fashioned from the same left-handed growing crystal as the rest of the skull. No investigation was made by Hewlett-Packard as to its method of manufacture or dating, because technically the dating is
it gets choppy, doesn't it? So as well as the traces of mechanical grinding on the teeth noted by Dorland, a Mayan archaeologist looked at this thing, and he reported there were holes presumed to be intended to support it on pegs, and they showed signs of being made by a drilling with metal, actually. Yeah. Anna Mitchell Hedges then refused any subsequent requests for further scientific studying of the skull. And in 1973, the first publication about the discovery and research surrounding the Mitchell Hedges skull was published. And a few years later, Frank Dorland does what? Begins public lectures about the research, presenting a replica of the skull. And he's seen on many different TV shows talking about the crystal skulls. In her last 8 years, Anna Mitchell Hedges lived in Charleston, Indiana, with Bill Homan, whom she married 2002. She died April 11th, 2007. And since that time, the Mitchell Hedges skull has been owned by Homan. He continues to believe in its mystical properties. Now, the Mitchell Hedges skull goes on. It's a rock star. It's that rock star I'm telling you about. Yeah, it's one of them. It goes really everywhere. It goes everywhere.
The guy who keeps it like a huge black case.
It stays in.
He always does like this big dramatic presentation of him opening the case.
It's taken very well care of. These keepers who keep these. Yeah, the keepers who keep these things are amazing. Now, the place where I bought my little skull, Azul, which is now Anna, by the way, long story, has different meaning. This little girl came from the same shop, and the Mitchell Hedges skull was there for a very long time. So if you want any skulls, crystal skulls that have been around a Mitchell Hedges skull, I know a place. And all those skulls were actually in direct presence of the Mitchell-headed skull, which is pretty cool. I don't know, it may mean something to some people. It's just really a cool fact as far as I'm concerned. That is real, by the way.
That's a real quartz crystal skull.
That's a real quartz crystal skull. This is mine for now.
It's really pretty in person too, guys.
She's a beauty. She's made out of quartz crystal, and if you see these lines that going through her, this is a golden healer, which is basically it's got some iron in there and gives it a really pretty golden color. But this is a great little skull. But either way, if you get a chance to see the Mitchell-headed skull, go see the Mitchell-headed skull. It's really cool.
So the next skull on the desk is the Synergy skull. And this skull is said to have its origins going back to Easter Island, where it was said to have been in the possession of the people of the sky.
This is one of my favorite skulls.
Later, it traveled with the Aboriginal wayfarers by reed canoe, who in the 8th century AD set sail for the Hawaiian Islands. The tribes brought along with them the crystal skull passed down by their elders. It would disappear into history until sometime around 1600, when a young nun would receive the skull as a gift in Peru. She would guard it until her deathbed in 1720. She would pass it on to a native family. She told them the history of the skull and how she had became its keeper, and then instructed them to keep the skull in their possession until the right person comes along. From there, it disappears again until a European businessman gifted it to Sherry Whitfield, who is now the guardian of that skull.
Their stories are just fantastic. We're talking about, allegedly, and I have no reason to doubt them, something that was so special to these people that they took it across the ocean with them when they formed a new colony.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And it was given to them from the people of the sky. I mean, come on. What could you,
Oh, I forgot to tell you this about the Mitchell-headed skull. Adam told me he actually got to meditate with it one time.
Oh, a lot of people do. Yeah. A lot of people get to meditate with it. There's several. Dave got to be around Max. He has pictures of himself holding Max, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about Max later too. Max is a very important skull as well.
Well, the next skull on the table is going to be the Tibetan skull. In 1959, as the invading Chinese army encroached upon the capital city of Lhasa, Tibet, the Dalai Lama and other lamas make an exodus toward Nepal, taking with them, according to some legends, a large 22-pound crystal skull named Amar.
Mm-hmm. And this is Amar, and it is beautiful.
Wow.
Look at those designs in that thing.
That is pretty.
That's a pretty skull.
And 22 pounds. Think about this thing probably being about the size of a bowling ball.
And they took this thing all the way to Nepal, by the way. Like that's how they got it out, so that it wouldn't be captured. So they needed to get it away. That's something. It was so important that they had to get it out, before the Chinese army got in there.
Now, the next skull on the table is Einstein, a 33-pound giant skull carved from a single piece of rock quartz. It's the largest crystal skull discovered, and Carolyn Ford owns Einstein and claims that the skull communicated with her upon first seeing it, and that it was an ancient master computer. During the conversation, it's stated that the crystal skulls, apparently record everything on Earth since the dawn of time. Einstein claimed to have been in Atlantis, along with many other crystal skulls, before they were scattered around the world. But science! Skulls cannot be that old, right?
Well, hell, can they? What about the evidence of that modern tool marks? Huh?
It's impossible to date them. And it's possible, like, let's just... I'm a fabricator, metal fabricator to be specific, like really good, to the point where the U.S. government used to trust me to build airplanes for people.
I wouldn't trust you to build airplanes.
Right. So I'm really good with sheet metal, and I'm really good with metal tools and hand forming. It is possible, because for shiggles, why not? We used to be tested to see what our skill levels were like, and could we use more primitive tools in a situation where we had to. You can do certain things without modern tooling, and it's not really that hard. It just takes a whole lot more effort.
No, it takes a lot more effort.
You gotta.
It takes an extreme amount of effort.
It takes forever, but you can do it.
I've
it
done
just
this.
takes forever. You've got to be in a place where you're not getting shot at. You know, you've got to be in a position where you have time to do the thing, but you can do it. You can sit, and if you work at it long enough, with enough time, I would imagine, and this is just me speaking hypothetically here, with a coarse enough braided hemp line, you could probably sit and over a 300-year period, carve off a jaw piece of a freaking skull.
Right.
Just sitting every day. All you did was this.
Yeah.
I bet it would work.
We don't know how many people it took.
And not only would it work, but it would polish it at the exact same time.
Well, either way, you know, their whole thing is there was lapidary marks, and there was no way that, you know, we could have these lapidary marks if these things were this old.
Well,
that was
you can't
number
tell
one
me
thing.
that these people didn't know when you wet sanded something,
right,
that it sanded different.
Right, exactly.
You can't tell me that.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, the wonderful thing about the Paris skull and it being debunked all of a sudden, that was in 2007, 2008. And that was after a series of analyses that were carried out over a 3-month period, by the way. Engineers concluded that the skulls were certainly not free Colombian. It shows traces of polishing and abrasion by modern tools. Now, what's interesting here is, again, this is from Wikipedia. You'll note it says right there in little tiny blue letters on your sheet, full citation needed. So no one knows where that quote even came from, but yeah, here it is, and you know,
right, and it's sourced.
Yeah, exactly.
This is good enough.
This is good enough. So particle accelerator tests were also conducted, and they revealed occluded traces of water that were dated to the 19th century. Okay. And the Quay Branley released a statement that the test, quote, seemed to indicate that it was made late 19th century. So in 2009, the researchers published results of their further investigation to establish when the Paris skull had been carved. Now they think they know, right? Analysis indicated that the use of lapidary machine tools in its carving, we already said this, the result of a new dating technique, which promised great, you know, accurate readings, quartz hydration dating, or a QHD, it demonstrated that the Paris skull had been carved later than a reference period of quartz specimen that they had, which was from 1740. And the researchers concluded, based on this, that the results combined showed that the skull had been carved in the 18th to 19th century. So, mystery solved, right? No, it wasn't. So, carbon dating, you brought this up before. We can't carbon date stone, right? So we have to carbon date the stuff that's found with a stone, just like we said before. There's luminescence dating. This is another thing that they were kind of briefly talking about there. So luminescence dating, I want to tell you how this works. Basically, what it does is it dates the crystal material, such as quartz or feldspar, to the last time that it was exposed to sufficient heat or sunlight before it was buried. You heard me right. I don't know how that would even work. But more importantly, they use something called quartz hydration to verify that this thing was not as old. Okay. Now, quartz hydration is a technique, and it was used most accurate when dating objects from 50,000 to 100,000 years old, the researchers said. The technique was described in 2004 Journal of Archaeological Science. The technique relies on the absorption of water into a fresh cut surface of mineral, forms a rim of hydrated quartz, and the thickness of the rim reveals how long the surface has been exposed. This sounds viable, right? Sure. Yeah. But the technique can be used to date objects between 100 and 1 million years old. And it's accurate to within 35% of the object's age, the researcher said. Now, although the research
is a bit fuzzy.
Yeah. Although the researcher admitted the error margin was large, I think, compared with other dating techniques, which can't be used, by the way. We just told you they can't be used. So This is all you got. So, in cases of forgeries, even a large margin of error would be sufficient to spot. This is what they said. However, not everybody was sold on that. An Australian researcher and archaeologist, Dr. Alan Watchman from the Australian National University in Canberra, was concerned with that large margin of error, as he should have been.
Right. Anybody should have been.
Yeah, it's a 35% margin of error. And he said it's excessive, and we would never accept that. We look at 2 to 5% acceptable.
That's generally what's accepted error margin for just about anything. So
Yeah.
like 35% and then be like, 35% will do. Like that's just squirrely, man.
He said it was very limited, and it could only go back to about 45,000 years. He also said that there were inherent problems with the quartz technique, and the authors of this technique absolutely acknowledge the fact that there is problems with it, including the effect of temperature and hydration history on the object being dated. That could invalidate the test as well. So basically what we're saying is any kind of fluctuation in extreme temperatures, we've had those over the past, 10,000 years, could affect the dating. So it's not as accurate and foolproof as they want to say. And that's what they based their findings on, that said that the skull was a forgery. And that was on from the 18th, 19th century.
Well, what you guys have sat and listened to so far is that no one can find a good way to test these things.
Nope.
No one can agree. No one wants to accept any party's explanation.
Well, they don't want,
and it's understandable.
They don't want to accept the fact that these ancient people had the possibility. These ancient people had this technique, bud, but they did
rewrite history if they didn't.
But they didn't know. It's a matter of history. They didn't even look. Gem cutting has been known. There are artifacts that have been dated that were made out of jade. Okay. Those jade artifacts are immaculate, by the way. They look amazing. They were made by the same people, man. They were made by the same people. They were grinded. I'll find some pictures of those and throw those up. They're just amazing. And they did that out of jadeite. So jadeite is like a 6 to 7, I think, something like that on the Mohs scale of hardness. Quartz is only 7 to 7.5. All you need is a little bit extra oomph,
right.
Like, and you're there. So it's not without reason. But what really is messed up about the whole thing is that, they're saying that this didn't exist until this European guy came up with, lapidary techniques. But he didn't come up with this, man. He did not come up with the whole, I'm going to polish these stones and I'm going to use this new technique where I basically impregnate the material that I'm using with an oil substance, which is what they did. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing they could have did. I mean, it's not rocket science is what I'm getting.
No, it wasn't groundbreaking when it was discovered. It was just
really wasn't. It really wasn't. So why they won't accept the fact that these things could be possibly real, I don't understand.
Because they can't prove exactly how it would be made. That could be why they're jumping to the conclusion that it's fake.
I think so too. I mean, I think that they're just an artifact that's out of time. It's something that doesn't fit in, but no one can agree on their ages and whatnot. But there's still these claims, these supernatural powers of the crystal skulls. They've had no support, of course, in the scientific community for any of that. That's all metaphysical stuff. And it's, really, honestly, the quote that I found was just completely closed-minded. It basically said that these things can't offer us anything and we don't need to look any further. That's literally what the quote says, that the phenomena associated with the skulls, there's no reason for any further investigation. That's ludicrous. Of course there are.
But
just
now
because we haven't found anything in the archaeological record to say this is how they could have done that doesn't mean that they couldn't do it. It just means that we haven't found it yet in the ground.
That's right, man. I mean, you're absolutely right. And closing it out, some of the very first instances of the strange powers that were associated with the skulls were said to have come from the surviving tribal members. Now, again, they're not listening to these tribal members because we've heard this before. Oh,
Yeah.
they don't. That's legends. But they related that like to Anna Mitchell Hedges that skull had power. And in 1910, a priest assisting the archaeological digs in the Mayan city of Copan, he said he had unearthed a giant clear quartz skull and he hid it from the archaeologist. He later takes this skull and uses it in a local Mayan village to cure a plague, allegedly. All right. But most of the lore around the Mitchell Hedges skull originated in that 1985 book, The Skull Speaks. This is one of the first books that was actually written about these things, where psychic Carol Davis recounted her information that she received from these skulls while in a trance-like state. Another book in 1989, Mystery of the Crystal Skulls, revealed would lay the base for the more mystical revelations that they would start talking about multiple skulls and how they would bring people together at this point. Now, there are many crystal skulls which are considered to be the ancient ones, and these skulls are almost celebrities. We know this. They're
Right.
rock stars. The belief that these skulls would help humanity may sound like it's just a legend or a tale, but that people turn out to see them, and they turn out to see them in mass numbers. They gather together. They do seem to bring people together. And one of the cases would be the skull I brought up before, and that's Max. Tell Max's real quick story there, Joe.
Max came around in the early 70s when a red hat lama, Norbu Chen, received a large 18-pound crystal skull as a gift from a Mayan shaman in Mexico. It's said to have been found in a tomb in Guatemala sometime between 1924 and 1926 and was safeguarded by the people. Chen would go to work with this crystal skull in tandem with other Tibetan monks in healing center near Houston, Texas, for helping people who have serious health problems or illnesses. Upon his passing, the skull would be left to Carl and Joanne Parks of Texas. In 1992, a conference in Texas is held that inspired by a vision of the grandmother Twyla of the Seneca Nation. It is to provide a place for indigenous elders to come together and tell their sacred stories and traditions. The crystal skull Max is brought to this event and is welcomed and honored by many different tribes of elders who pay their respects. Max is a really popular skull. Max is one of the ones that is out there, just like the Mitchell Hedges skull, that is in the public, I guess you call it the public domain.
It's been, I heard not too long ago that it has a new home, that it has moved on to an undisclosed owner. So I don't know what's going to happen to Max at this point, but yeah, that's
a bummer.
Yep. Yeah. That's recent news, literally recent news, last few months, actually. So
that's a bummer. Seeing these things out on public display is really cool.
Well, hopefully they do. Hopefully they don't lock it away in a private collection, because Max had a lot of work to do, obviously. And it's temporary. What's the life of a crystal compared to humans anyway, right? Someone will dig it out at some point and do what is supposed to be done.
Right.
But as 2012 neared, many believed that these crystal skulls were going to somehow relate to that date. And so ceremonies were held in December 21st, 2012. And some of the skulls, a lot of them actually, returned to the land of the Maya. Some of the Mayan elders, including Mayan Daykeeper, was speaking prior to the 2012 events. He said that he believed that the crystals were part of the sun and that the earth is linked to these crystal skulls. The shape of the skull, as you asked before, Brandon, is a representation of sacred symbology of the universe itself. And we talked about this just a few weeks ago, about the whole golden ratio, right? And how you can inscribe this knowledge into these shapes. So that's what the skull is. But today, like I showed you guys, you can go buy your own. There are some really nice ones out there. There's some sites that actually they'll take these guys and they'll send them to the people who own, like Einstein and some of these bigger skulls, Mitchell Hedges skull, for example, and they'll put them all around them and they'll leave them there with them, and you can purchase those skulls. Do they absorb the energy? I don't know, but I thought that it was fitting that a lot of these people think that these ancient skulls are the only true knowledge keepers. They're the only true power skulls. But that Mayan Daykeeper that I was telling you about, in his little speech that he gave, it was just great. He disagreed with that. He said that the crystals are all ancient. Some may have been carved later, of course, by different tools, but they're all just as old. They all came from the same earth. They all came from the same piece of material. I mean, who knows? This little piece could have came from, one of those pieces. It just happened to be carved in our time as opposed to the 1800s. So that's the crystal skulls. Whether you believe in its power or not, that really doesn't matter. They're real. They're something that's very real. They can't be denied. They're on display all around the world, but it's up to you to decide how they were made. And if you think that early humans did or did not possess the ability to do that, I honestly believe if you think that they didn't, you're not giving our ancestors enough credit.
With enough patience and time, anything's possible.
We don't need aliens to do it. Of course, it could be that. It could, honestly. Let's be real. It could be.
Yeah.
But we don't need that. That doesn't need to be the only explanation for this. Someone could have sat there and just been obsessed. And it would have taken years. I mean, I don't know about 300 years, but it would have taken years to finish such a project. And to do so, there would be a really good reason that you would do that.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking, Brandon?
Well, a few questions that pop up is if they are a storage device, how would you activate them?
Okay.
What would you need to do? Would you need to connect them to an electrode?
Just did. And Anna says,
you need to put Anna on the ovilus.
Ooh, there's an idea.
Oh, let's do that.
Let's break the universe. Who's with me? That's another thing that we didn't touch on in this. Some do believe that the crystal skulls are a sort of a quantum device, by the way. And, we're dealing with something to that nature. And what's really funny is we're just starting to get to the point where we even understand some of that stuff. Who knows, man? I mean, it's so, it's so up in the air. And let's just turn the ovilus on and see what happens. I'm going to put you up here. She's heavy. She's a very heavy little skull. Can you imagine what some of those big guys must feel like?
Ovilus on.
Okay, ovilus is on.
Let's get weird.
All right. Let's see if Anna can speak through the ovilus. I mean, she's a crystal skull. She should be able to take control of another device that has crystals in it, I would think. Thought our music stopped for a second. Did you hear that? Oh, I see.
So what are the crystal skulls, Anna?
Yeah. What are the crystal skulls, Anna? Inquiring minds need to know. Maybe she doesn't like blue light. Hang on, let me change her light color. We'll see. Here, we'll change your light color. How about what do you guys think? What color? Go for red. Pink.
Arrive.
She likes red, I guess. Arrived. So okay, she's here. That's what she just said. She likes pink. So Anna likes pink. No, obviously. All right, yeah, Anna. So tell us about the crystal skulls. We just did a whole subject. We just did a whole almost 2 hours on your people. We know you arrived. Where'd you arrive from? That's the question, right?
Yeah. Where did you arrive from?
Yeah, where did you guys arrive from? Did the sky people bring you? Were you carved? Did an early ancient Dremel cult? That once. Yeah, I know. That's a throwback. That was a throwback for you people who don't know. I got kicked off of a page once for suggesting that.
Yeah.
They had no sense of humor. They're terrible people. And I don't care anymore because you're terrible people.
Those forums are just way too serious.
Oh, no. Yeah. It was a Facebook group.
It was a Facebook group, yeah.
They were a bunch of experts that didn't understand anything. They failed to understand humor. They were a dumpster fire, I believe.
Oh man, that group was a mess.
Oh, come on, Anna. That's it? Arrived? Really? That's all you're going to give us?
That's it. That's all we get.
Anna, are you a storage device?
We'll change your color again. Maybe green.
If you're a storage device, how do we activate you?
Ooh, green looks good. She likes green. Yeah, how do you turn this thing on? How do you turn the crystal on? Once again, the ovilus is being absolutely quiet.
Were you brought to us by Quetzalcoatl?
Whoa, that was bright. She just blinded me. Man, that's insane.
What if you got all 13 together and they made the Windows XP loading noise?
Oh,
But
that'd be great.
it'd be even better if it was the old AOL dial-up sound.
Sail.
Whoa. She just said sail. Sail.
Come sail away. Come sail away. Come
Well, I thought they were
sail
angels.
away with me.
But
You
much to my
guys.
surprise, they climbed aboard their starship, etc.,
Just
etc.
say-
You like Jefferson Starship?
Really?
Are you a Jefferson Airplane fan?
That's all we got. That's really all we got. This has been fast.
That's all we're getting. This is going to be like the most chilled out ovilus session we've ever had.
Thanks, Hannah.
Maybe that's what the crystal skulls do. Just calms everything.
Nothing
They
doomy.
calm everything.
Nothing
No.
leaky on.
No, it's very calm. Very calm. They arrived, sail, which is exactly what the ancient
That-
legend says.
That's exactly what the people
I'm-
of Easter Island said that it did.
That's what I'm saying. So, am I going to argue with that? Nope. Am I going to argue with Anna?
Nope.
Oh, of course
What
not.
you're saying is the crystal skull is really the heart of Tafiti. Moana must deliver.
It is. That is the story that I heard when I read that. Actually, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I've heard this story before.
Yeah.
That's what it is, man. It's the heart of Tafiti. That's what they are. Oh, did you hear where they're actually going to make a live action version?
Yeah, the rock.
So soon.
The Rock.
Oh,
He's
well,
gonna
okay.
actually-
I'm sold.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, right? Yeah. He's going to play Maui, and it's going to be pretty amazing. I was watching one of his interviews, and that was awesome. I did not know that he had such a route to Hawaii, like the actual, like he's big time in the tribe. Like,
Yeah, he's
basically.
Samoan.
He's a big guy. Like his great grandfather or somebody, I forget which one it was like a big guy. in
But
the
it doesn't
tribe.
matter because his grandma ran the biggest wrestling promotion on the island.
It's true.
That's the real royalty
Like
here.
50 years, yeah.
Yep. He's an amazing individual, though.
Yeah,
But
his history is
You know,
great.
he was also
you guys
a,
go watch
he
the
robbed
TV
a
show
jewelry
Young
store.
Rock.
What's that, Brandon?
Oh, when he was a teenager, he robbed a jewelry store and almost got arrested for it.
Yeah.
Dumb things you learn from. Look at him
Right.
now. But yeah, he's one of the best. It's really awesome.
Well, guys, this has been our Crystal Skulls episode. I think we've done done justice to the topic. If you guys have been around any of the Crystal Skulls and would like to share your experience, you can always send those over to wildandweirdwv@gmail.com. Or you can go to wildandweirdwv.com and hit the report a sightings tab. So if you have seen one of these crystal skulls in the wild and you would like to just report that, that would be cool as well. Or if you've had an experience with any other anomalous phenomena, we want to hear about it. You can go hit that same contact us, report a sighting tab, and fill out your sighting report with as much detail as possible. If we are in the area or know people in your area, which is a very good chance, we can get your case investigated. And we will get that into the hands of good, solid investigators who will do their due diligence. If you want to help support Wild and Weird for eons to come and keep it free for eons and eons, we are working on purchasing our very own Crystal
Myself.
Skull storage device.
Whoa. That's a new one. Myself.
Well, I was just talking about the storage device.
Myself.
We've already purchased the Crystal Skull storage device.
Myself. You heard that, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you said storage device.
And apparently
Wow.
we can now we just need to figure out how to upload it. So thank you for all of your support. We've accomplished our next goal.
Oh, something I wanted to bring up and I forgot almost.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
One
go
of the
ahead.
things that we didn't touch on is one of the ideas for how they're made, which
Yeah.
is that somehow the ancients figured out a way to melt quartz
That's right.
and they poured them into a mold.
Poured it into a mold.
That was the Atlanteans. And we're going to eventually get somebody to take up on the offer, man, and come on the show from Lemuria or Atlantis and tell us how they were made.
So guys,
Go over
You
and
know-
buy some of those patches, by the way. We got those.
you can go over to our shop and pick up some patches over on the eShop on our website.
Correct.
Go to wildandweirdwv.com, hit the shop tab. You're going to be able to pick up those patches. You're also going to be able to get your very own Wild and Weird Skulls. This is just one of the versions that we've got. Ron makes some other really cool ones that have crystals in them and other little wingdings and gold and bizarre awesomeness. And you definitely want to check those out. Those are going to be up on the website soon. The skulls that he makes are really, really cool. I just make lost resin
Measure.
She says they're too small. She just said measure.
She said measure. It is approximately 2 inches. This skull front and back is 2 inches.
She wants it to come to her. She said, come.
This skull is now Anna's.
Yep. That is now Anna's. You have a pet.
Okay.
Anna?
So, guys, the longer we go, the better this gets. So, what we were going to do is we will manifest the crystal skull on the next live episode with Ron and Brandon and do an ovilus session. I think that will get really, really fun. You guys your own questions at that point.
Yeah, that'd be Thursday. So let's bring Anna back out on Thursday for
which will be yesterday for you guys listening now.
No, next Thursday. We're gonna Thursday following this episode.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let's do it that way. That way, you guys
everybody's listening could go join it on YouTube. Yeah. See,
yeah.
Look at the brain there.
Yeah, let's do that. And that way, you can come over and ask Anna your own question, and we'll let you ask a question, and we'll see if she, she decides to answer or not. Could be fun. Who knows? Could break the universe. Like I said, breaking the universe. That's always fun.
What I'm trying to do right now.
Quantum unstablement.
Well, everybody, thanks for
ovilus on.
I had to do it.
Cool.
Sorry, I had to do that.
Well, everybody, thanks for joining us for another episode of Wild and Weird Radio. Hope you enjoyed it. We hope you go over and you hit that subscribe button on YouTube and go over and give us a 5-star rating and review if you're listening on Apple iTunes or one of the other podcast options that will let you leave a review, because I know there's not many of those. I think Apple's one of the
it's one of the few left, I think, man. Everybody else is like, I'm afraid they'll give us bad reviews, so they'll quit using us. I guess. I don't know.
So go over there and give us a 5-star rating review. Helps us get up higher in the polls. And as always, thanks for tuning in. And remember,
90.
My name is
there you
Optimus Prime,
90.
leader of the Autobots.
I don't know what that means.
That was the year I was born.
90?
Oh.
90? Oh, she's doing the numerology thing. I see what she did. All right. 9.
Referencing a past episode.
90. 9. What was 9? You guys remember?
No.
What was 9, Brandon?
Oh, do you want to do
End of
the
a
thing
chapter.
Where,
End of a chapter.
oh.
It's the end of the show.
It is the end of the show. So remember,
I believe in these things. Sorry. I'm out.
for those of you listening on audio, this will be more impressive.
Yeah.
My name is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. Stay wild and weird. Take care, everybody.